Hey, welcome. I'm Lee Waller, and today in After Effects, I'm going to take a look at recreating this little scene right here that you're seeing in front of you. Now, I'm calling this Moon River. So in this tutorial, I'm going to cover a number of things like camera tracking, track matte, color grading, CC sphere, and fractal noise to recreate this scene. So let me show you what the original footage looked like. Here I have in this comp right here, the original footage. I just shot this using a drone. And you can see that it's daytime. Now, one of the things that really helped with me being able to convert this to a nighttime scene is that it was very overcast that day. So the sky here is going to be a little bit easier. This is probably the trickiest part to all of this, is to convert this to the nighttime scene. But that made it a lot easier for me to make it more convincing to be nighttime because it was overcast. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to track the motion of the camera. We're going to use that for two elements in the original, this text right here and our background. And I'll show you that as we get to it. So the first thing is we're going to select that footage, and then we're going to come over here to Tracker, open up that panel, and we're going to track camera. This will take a few minutes based on your computer. This footage is 4K, so it takes a little bit of time. So of course, I'm going to fast forward through this, but I will show you that we have started right up here. It's going to give you a readout of the percentage of the footage, what frame you're on, and an approximation of how much longer it's going to take. So once it's done analyzing, it will then solve the camera and actually give us the opportunity to put a virtual camera into the scene that the 3D elements that we put in will actually react to it and track along with the actual motion of the scene. So I'll get back to you as soon as this is ready. So the 3D camera tracker has completed its process and it has solved the camera. Now you don't see a lot right at the moment, but I'll show you how we can get a better look at this in just a moment. But I'm hovering over and there's points on this footage that the 3D camera tracker has created. You can see that when I hit 3 points together, we get this target. Now to see these points a little bit better, I'm going to go to the 3D camera tracker over here and I'm going to increase the size quite a bit. And now you can see those points. So each of these are track points that After Effects has created, and they're points that as we scan through, you can see that some of them stay, some of them disappear, and it's based on how well After Effects was able to track something in the footage. Now, we're going to come back to this a little bit later, but we are going to use this tracking information. The next thing that I want to do is I want to color correct this footage to begin to create this nighttime look that we have right here. So I'm going to go back to the original and I'm going to add Lumetri to this. Go up to Effect, Color Correction, and Lumetri. And I'm going to start making some adjustments to this. The first thing I'm going to do is jump into the basic correction here, and I'm going to bring my exposure down to a -7. And then I'm going to bring my contrast up just a little bit to about 10%. And then I'm going to jump into this creative tab here. And I'm going to take the shadow tint and the highlight tint, and I'm going to push both of them pretty extreme over to this yellow. We'll see how that starts looking. And then I'm going to make one more adjustment. I'm going to come out of creative, go into curves right here. And these are my luminance values, overall luminance values for this shot. Here are my highlights. Here are my shadows here. And I'm going to really bring this down to darken it even more, probably about down to right here, about in there. And then I'm going to push just a little bit in the mids, just push up just a little bit to brighten this in the foliage a little bit. So after the initial color grading, what I'm going to do next is I want to replace this sky here. And the way that I chose to do this is I'm going to create a track matte. And a track matte, especially this luminance track matte, is going to work off white and black values. Okay, so this area right here, I'm going to make it completely white. And then the rest of the shot, I'm going to make it completely black. So what I need to do to create this track matte first is I'm going to duplicate the original footage. And before I do that, I am going to label that. I'm going to hit the Enter key, and I'm going to label this original footage. Hopefully I spelled that right. And then I'm going to duplicate it, select it, Control D, and there is my original footage too. I'm going to label that one, hit the Enter key, and I'm going to call this track matte. And this is the one that we're going to create that track matte on. To do this, I'm going to jump back to Lumetri, and I'm going to reset everything. And now I'm going to, first of all, let me go to my basic color correction, and I'm going to pull out all of the color. I'm going to desaturate everything. And then I'll jump into my curves here. And this is going to be a little weird, but I'm going to drag all of my highlights about to here. And then I'm going to drag all of my shadows to right in here. And that's pretty much getting me as close as I can get. The problem is we start losing a lot of detail up in here where the light that's coming in around this foliage is creating bloom, and it's just kind of a hard area to work with. But this was the best result that I felt like I could get out of this. Now, I will add a mask into this because what I want to do is I want to get rid of all of this down here. I want all of this to be black. So with that selected, I'll come up here, grab my pen tool, and then I'll just start somewhere up here and just kind of select some to stay, but get rid of a lot of this, and we'll come on around. And with that mask drawn, I'm going to jump in here to that mask, and I'm going to invert it. And this will be our track matte, and this is how we're going to replace the sky. So now I'm going to go to the original footage, and I have my switches right here, and I need to go to modes. So I'm going to click down here, toggle switches and modes, and you'll see here is our track matte. Right now it says no track matte, so we're going to use this track matte on the original footage. So we'll click on this and we'll choose track matte layer. And now you see that it's done exactly what we want. We have removed that sky. And just to show you, I'm going to click the transparency grid off, and there we have it. There is a hole in this footage that we can now add our own sky into. Let me go and turn that transparency grid off. And one last thing I'm going to do to the track matte is I'm going to add a little bit of blur to it to help in this area here around the edges of this foliage. So I'll select that track matte, go up to Effect, Blur and Sharpen, come down to Gaussian Blur and apply that. Can't really see it right now, but it will help in the end. I'm going to bring that blurriness up to 5 right there. Taking a look back at the original shot, one of the things that I did is highlighted this area right here, this reflection here of the sunlight, which is now going to be our moonlight, and changed it to this more golden color. So I'm going to go jump in and work on that now. Everything's kind of working off of the original footage. So again, I'm going to go to the original footage, and this time I'm going to duplicate it one more time, Control D, and we will label this reflection. So in the final shot that we're going to create, I need to color grade this area here. And so on that layer, the reflection layer right there, I'm going to create a mask in this area so that I can focus just on that area and color grade it only. So I'm going to grab my pen tool and just start. It doesn't have to be very exact, but just going to mask in the area that I kind of want to highlight and make it pop out just a little bit. And so there we have it. Now I'll just solo that real quick to show you. There's our mask on that one clip. And now what I'm going to do is I'll dig down into my properties here, go to my mask, and I'm going to set a keyframe for this mask path because I'm going to start animating it. And we can do this pretty loosely, just jumping a little bit at a time. And let's see, move this over a little bit. I think for this first one, jump down a little bit more. Let's see, we'll move it over some more. I think that's going to work for right now. keep this process up. We are going to have to start actually animating the mask in just a minute. See, move it over some more. And right here, because I'm starting to cut into that bush right there, I'm going to need to select that and move that, start animating it so that we're not highlighting that right there. And let's see, yep, we can keep going, maybe a little bit slower, and move, whoops. And I'm gonna highlight the whole thing and slide it over. And again, we're gonna need to select these points and drag them out. We're starting to get more of that in there. And if you need to, you can go back to the pen tool and add a point. Let me actually bring this over. And let's go all the way to the beginning now. And we will definitely need to move that in. That may have got a little bit out too far. So let's see, we'll bring these over. Again, doesn't have to be exact, but that's going to work. Check all of that. Let me jump back. I'm going to use the K key to jump right here. I think I'll adjust this just a little bit right there. Check it again, maybe just a little bit. All right, and now to finish it out, I'll go in this direction. And let's see. Grab my selection tool, select all of it, and think we're pretty safe there till the end. All right, that looks pretty good. Okay, so now what we can do is we can color correct this area that's inside of the mask, and we're not going to affect the rest of the shot, so that we really cause this area to highlight, to pop out. And since this is a copy of our original footage, we already have Lumetri on it, so all I'm going to need to do is go in and make a few adjustments to it. I'm going to double click on this line to reset it. You can see that we're already getting some brightness back into this, and I'm going to push the highlights a good bit. And I will jump over to my creative and make sure that we've really pushed in our yellows there. And then I'll make one more adjustment. Sorry, I need to go back to the curves. And we're going to drop down here to saturation. And I will make some adjustments here on our yellow and really push that in there. Now we may come back and actually I'm going to over exaggerate it because I'm going to dial this down on opacity for the entire clip. But I just really want to push that golden color right there. And now for this, and we can come back and adjust this, I'm going to bring the overall opacity down. That just gives me a lot to work with. And we can set that to our liking as we kind of complete this. All right, so now we do need to, and I can see it, we need to feather that mask to blend that in a little bit. So let me go back to this reflection layer, go back to the mask. And the mask feather right there, we'll bring that mask feather up a good bit. I'm going to hit Control-Shift-H to hide my handles real quick so I can get a good look at that and maybe zoom in just a little bit to really feather that. Might bring the mask expansion back just a little bit. We can see how that plays out, but I'm working on just blending in the edges here to make sure that we don't have a hard line in there. Okay, that looks good. All right, let me zoom back out and bring this back into place. Now what we need to do is we need to create our sky back here. And to do that, I'm going to create a new composition. So I'm going to go up to Composition, New Composition, and we'll call this Moon Clouds. And I'm going to go with a 4K clip. And let's see, I think this clip might be about 13 seconds long. So let me hit the duration on that and hit OK. Now, to create this, I'll jump back to the original and show you. There's the moon, and that is an actual moon texture. To acquire this moon texture in any type of texture for any planet, if you're not familiar with this, you can simply go to the World Wide Web, the internets, and you can search for, in this case, moon texture. And there will be a number of images that you can go and download, grab, or if you go back to the original search, you can also see that there are places that will have this for download. So I grabbed this, not real sure where I grabbed it from, but I did grab it from the internet. Let's see what this brings up. You see here under this NASA website that you can download these textures. Once you have the texture downloaded, all you need to do is bring that into After Effects, and I'll show you. Here is my 2K version of this, and go back into my comp. I'm going to bring that in, just drop it in as a layer if you're not familiar with this. And a higher resolution one would be better, but this one will work. And I'm going to apply an effect to it. Go to Effect, Perspective, CC Sphere, and there you have your moon. Again, you can do this with any planet texture like the Earth, Mars, whatever they have out there. And CC Sphere has a few things here that we can work with. I am going to bring the radius of this up to 250, make it just a little bit larger. And I think I'll stick with that, but you can rotate this. So if you want to see another area of the moon, you can easily rotate that and adjust it to however you want it. But I think that works for right now. I like that. So after adjusting the radius, I want to soften this edge up and just kind of create a little bit of a halo effect around the moon. To do that, I'm going to add two effects to it. Go up to Effect, and the first one will be Blur under Blur and Sharpen, and I'm going to drop in a channel blur. And I'm going to go to the alpha channel and blur that by about 20% there. And that alpha channel is based on that edge right there. And you can see it softens up that edge. The next thing that I want to do is add a glow to this. So I'm going to go to back to Effect, and we're going to drop down to Stylize, and we're going to add in glow. So in the glow effect here, glow is based on, right now it's color channels, but we want to change that to alpha channel. And we're going to adjust the threshold up to 90%. And let's bring that radius way up to 300%. And then our glow intensity, we're going to drop it down quite a bit to 0.15%. And so that's just kind of giving us that glowy halo effect. Now we're not finished creating our moon and clouds. We need to create clouds. To do the clouds, I'm going to start with a solid layer. So I'm going to go to Layer, New, Solid. Make sure that it's comp size, and we'll go with black on that and hit OK. I'm going to add an effect. Go up to Effect, and we're going to go to Noise and Grain right there, and we're going to add in the fractal noise. Make a few adjustments to this. I'm going to leave this at basic and soft linear. I will invert this. And then on the contrast, we're going to change that contrast to 30. And then the brightness, we're going to select -44 on it. And then I'm going to scale this way up, drop into the transform properties right here, go to scale, and I'm going to scale that up to about 2050. And we're definitely getting there. Going to make one more adjustment down here on blending mode, drop that to screen. And then for this layer, the entire layer, I'm going to go to transparency. I'm going to select the layer, hit the T key on the keyboard, and bring that opacity down to 20%. And I'll drop that below. And then just to kind of add a little bit more noise to this, I'm going to duplicate that layer and bring that up top. And this layer, I'm going to go back to transparency on it and bring it up to 30%. And then we will make an adjustment, one more adjustment on that layer in the fractal noise, and adjust this by about 90 degrees. And so there are our moon and clouds. So back in the main comp, I'm going to add in the moon and clouds in just a moment, but I'm scrubbing through and I see that I have an issue with the mask that I applied back there. So let me select that, and we're going to need to adjust this mask just a little bit so that this is not showing up. So let me jump into that mask, select it, and start adjusting just a little bit. Grab those, bring them down. Scrub back through and make sure that none of that is creating any issues for us. Okay, that looks like that works. Now that the mask is no longer an issue, we're going to go into our original footage and we're going to add in a virtual camera using this 3D camera tracking information. So I've gone in, selected that 3D camera tracker. You see all of our tracking points. I know that I'm going to want to add text in right down here. So I'm going to select several of these in that area and it'll create a target. You see that red area right there? That's a target for us. And I'm going to right click on it and I'm going to create text and camera. So you'll see here in the timeline that our text layer and our 3D camera now has been added in. I'm going to go to that text layer and I'm going to select it and hit R on the keyboard. And on orientation, I'm going to zero all of this out real quick. And now you will see our text layer in there. And let me drop this down to about a third and we'll track that real quick, just a little bit. You see now that it is tracking with the camera and with the original footage, and that's what we wanted to accomplish. To add in our moon and clouds, I'm going to select the 3D camera tracker and I'm just going to go to one of these points way back here in the back and click on it, right click on it, and I'm going to create a null. The only reason I want this is to get some information from it. That track null is right there, and I'm going to go to position. And I want you to look at this position here. This is in pixels, but it's over 300,000 pixels away from the camera, out in front of the camera. So with that in mind, we're going to add in our moon and clouds, and we're going to position it similar to that. We'll play with it and see what happens. But we just need to kind of get an idea of how far away this moon and clouds needs to be so that it tracks with the camera correctly. So I'm going to go up here now to the project, grab our moon and clouds composition, drop it in. You see it back there. I need to make it a 3D layer, so I'm going to click the cube right there, and I'm going to select it and hit the P key for position, and I'll start off at 300,000. Actually, we'll go farther than that. Let's say 350. And it has become very small because it's been pushed far away from us. And so I will start dragging it into place. And we're also going to need to scale this up. So I'm going to select it again and I'm going to hit Shift S so that I can have my position and my scale there. And so I need to scale this up. So I'll try, let's see, 10,000 and see how that does. All right, that has us real close. So a couple of things I'm looking at are my edges here to make sure, and we'll scan through this. Okay, this side I'm looking good on it, and we'll move on over, and the other side stays in well. Okay, so we're almost in position there. Let me just bring this up a little bit and then push it over maybe a little bit to where we want it to end up. And let's see how that looks now. So we're getting a little bit of parallax now with it. We want just a little bit. We don't want it moving as fast as these objects up here in the front are, but we want it responding to the camera just slightly. That's why I got that information off of that null, and that gives us a good idea of how far we need to push that into the background. So that's looking real good at this point. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that null because we don't need it anymore. And now I want to add some color grading to that moon and clouds. And so select it, and I'm going to go up to Effect, Color Correction, Lumetri, drop that on there. And I'm going to go into the creative, I think, and just push those into the yellow a good bit. Grab the highlights, push that into the yellow a good bit. And again, this is going to be based on, I'm exaggerating it a little bit for the tutorial, but to really give that a nice look, that nice yellow look that's blending in with the rest of the scene. And now to finish this out with our text, we can go into it, double click on it, select it, and type in whatever you want to. I'm going to go with Moon River, put that in there. Let's see, you can adjust it a little bit, bring down the size, adjust it a little bit. Just however you want to place that in there. And I think I'll bring it up just a little bit. And there we have it, kind of a little bit of a, I don't know if this is spooky, I don't know if this is romantic, I'm not sure what this mood is, but you have Moon River there. I hope this has been helpful. For more on motion media design and After Effects, check out my other tutorials.